Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Game 4 of the Women's World Championship contested by Ju Wenjun and Tan Zhongyi. Today was another incredible game. At the end of this match, you cannot disrespect these players. You cannot say these players are not trying. Yesterday was 5.5 hours. Today, I think, was well over 5 hours again. These players are fighting to the bitter end to get everything out of the game. And today is no exception. They are fighting all the way. They are fighting each other tooth and nail to gain the slightest advantage. Yesterday, Ju Wenjun converted an incredible endgame into a win to tie the score. So they are 1.5, Tan Zhongyi with the white pieces. Game 4. And she continues with an English. She played in English in the first game. And now we get e6 from Ju Wenjun. Knight to c3, bishop b4, and here queen to b3. Just not allowing you to just freely capture this knight and to damage the pawn structure. So in the meantime, we get bishop to a5 because the bishop was under attack. G3, G3, c5, bishop to g2, knight to c6. E3, knight ge7, and you can see Ju Wenjun is down on time again. She spent some time thinking about c5, and she spent quite a lot of time now thinking about knight g to e7. And I thought about this a lot. You have 90 minutes plus 30 seconds increment to make your 40 moves, and then you gain about 30 minutes of extra time. And that's what I believe the format to be. So you can manage that time as you wish. It's your time to use. But when your opponent is up on time in every game, you might need to play a little bit faster. Ju Wenjun said she was conscious of this, and she's going to try and find the right approach in terms of time management. Knight g e7, castles, a6. She's now down 24 minutes. Very much level position, but d4. And this is a big move from Tan Zhongyi. She's up on time. I don't know if she's still in her prep, but this is what you have to do. The position is a little bit locked. So you get a nice pawn break in the center. And here we get a very interesting exchange. So cd4, ed4, and d5 from Ju Wenjun. This is a pawn sacrifice, because after takes, that pawn on d5 can simply be captured by white. You can go takes, and you can win a pawn in the center of the board. And the commentators, and looking at this, I don't see why she did this. I don't see the compensation for black. Normally, you sacrifice a pawn, you get activity. Look, you can come in with moves like this. Maybe bishop g4, I think, or knight b4 first. Knight b4 first. You hit the bishop, and then that might be the best way to play. But the bishop can also come out. Bishop g4 is now the preferred move. Knight b4. It's not convincing for me. Needless to say, that didn't happen. Tan Zhongyi elected not to take the pawn. She believed in Ju Wenjun, and she played bishop to e3. But now we get bishop takes, knight takes. The knight goes out to the side of the board, kicking the queen. And here, if the players want, they can repeat moves, because we get knight back, and you could repeat moves. But you see the board change color. This was on the board. They could have, but instead we got queen to c5, b6, attacking the queen, simple move, queen a3, bishop e6, rook ac1, knight f5, activating the knight, and now, very important move, bishop f4, a mistake from Tan Zhongyi. And now Ju Wenjun has a question. This pawn in the center is undefended, because we are trying to undermine this. The bishop is activating on this diagonal. Which knight do you use to take this pawn? Do you take it at all, or do you play b5? Threatening a fork, so white would have to play something like knight e2, and would have to continue with this position. The best move, or one of the best moves, is knight c takes d4, to get your knights like this. Get this knight out the way, because the rook will see it when this knight moves. So this is what you could do. Ju Wenjun here spends 18 minutes and she takes with the wrong knight. And I say she takes with the wrong knight. She's down to 34 minutes and 34 seconds to play another 21 moves, 22 moves. This is move 18. Tan Zhongyi has got an hour and 10 minutes. She has got double her opponent's time. And it goes from bad to worse because after rook fd1, Ju Wenjun makes a mistake. And Tan Zhongyi is now better, concretely because of knight takes b5 and takes queen b3. And Ju Wenjun now has to defend with 23 minutes on the clock. Knight e7. Queen takes. Rook takes on a2, so you get that back. But now, look at this. Exceptional. Bishop to e7. One of the only moves now holding everything together for black is found by Ju Wenjun. Queen a8. She's a resourceful defender. These players will not stop fighting. And here, a miss from Tan Zhongyi. A miss quite quickly. She only spends 3 minutes. She has an hour and 2. And this was also spoken about. Can you be in a position where you can see your opponents on time and you want to keep them under time pressure, where you also start blitzing out moves and you want to keep that time advantage? If you have a time advantage, use it. Bishop d6. The best move in this position is to just take on b6 with the queen. Grab that extra pawn. You're going to need it because black can activate very quickly, and you'll see that now. Because we don't. We play bishop d6, but now look at this. Rook a5. Kicking out the queen. Rook a4. And once the queen goes back, rook a7. The key move here, rook a7. And after here, we can trade, and the queen comes in. We do lose b6, but the queen now infiltrates down to c2. See very quickly, the queen has got active from a8 all the way to c7. In that time, you've only taken the pawn. The knight can get out the way, and then the rook is coming. As long as you don't hang a back rank, black is fine, and you can see the advantage has all but dissipated. Bishop f3, bishop f5. Not the best move, but a good enough. The bishop retreats, and now we look to trade light squared bishops. The queen gets kicked, and we take here. Very important move that I don't know if Ju Wenjun didn't consider, or she missed something. Probably taking with the pawn here is better. D takes e4 is better, because after queen e3, now you can play queen takes e3, and bishop takes e3, of course. This position is a lot better than what you get in the game, because what you get in the game is when you take with the queen, this still happens. Live, the queen takes e3 is given a mistake because the pawn is now on the d file. It is better over there. It's suppressing this square, and it might be a more useful pawn in the endgame. This pawn, where it is right now, is easily blockaded and easily won. f6 from Ju Wenjun, and now rook here. And you might say, oh, but I just defend with the king. You can't, because bishop comes in. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a winning king and pawn endgame. You cannot simplify into this. So Ju Wenjun has to be so careful. Knight f5 is a mistake. The best move here, hard to find, knight to g6. Hard to find, because this is maybe the idea, to bring your knight to e5. You better hope you can get to e5, because that knight doesn't have a future otherwise. Knight f5. The bishop attacks the rook, gaining a tempi. Rook d8. King slides over. King f1. Tan Zhongyi is winning again. Knight d6. b4, maybe a little bit early for b4. You could probably use another move and bring your king closer. You need to get your king closer. This king is still very much stuck. Don't want to walk in here and get pinned. You obviously can't go there. You lose your king. And you can't go too far because these pawns become weak. Because this rook is so active. This rook is doing nothing. But hopefully you'll be able to get your knight active. Knight d6. So after b4, it allows the knight to jump into e4. And although you can retreat the bishop, we are able to attack with the rook. And now we can get our rook to b5. It defends the pawn and it blockades. Now, very important here. If the white rook could just go there, it's probably winning for white. You can't trade the rooks. The bishop covers the promotion square. Your knight is not mobile enough. The bishop is better than the knight, so a trade of rooks is horrible for black. We have now also passed move 40, so they should have gained extra time. King e2, knight jumps back. King slides over. I don't know why. Tan Zhongyi went from 21 minutes to 48. So she gained her time. Ju Wenjun should have gained time here. I don't know why she didn't. What happened with the clocks there? Because she didn't use a lot of time. So I don't know what happened. Anyway, rook slides over. Knight now infiltrates. King slides over. Check. King slides back. And we push the pawn. King moves over. White wants to get this pawn. Black wants to get this pawn. It's very clear what both sides want. The bishop tries to blockade it, but now you can't. There was a trap here. I believe it was here. If you played king to c3, they were looking at this. And you don't have time to go here. This was a variation that they looked at because simply rook a6. And you can't actually do anything because you cannot trade this because of the rook taking. And we've discussed you cannot trade rooks. This is a clean pass pawn. And so if you move the rook, you're also going to lose your biggest advantage. And this king is far too active. This king got left behind. So very important there if king... That's why king c2 was played, not king to c3. So when the pawn came in, there was also a trap here. If king to c3, you have this. And you cannot take because you walk into that fork. And now you'll be losing the rook and black might go on to win the game. I don't know. What happens if king c4? Knight takes a7 protects the rook by magic. Not by magic. The players would have seen that. So king to c2. Now we can play d4. King comes over, but now the rook is behind the pass pawn. And the pass pawn is going. We're going to lose the pass pawn. But we're going to gain another pawn for ourselves. Our king gets out the way. Fantastic hold here from Ju Wenjun. Tan Zhongyi has an advantage. She definitely does. But Ju Wenjun just has enough counterplay. One inaccuracy from Tan Zhongyi there. The knight gets back. The king comes forward. And you are going to be able to simplify this into a drawn rook endgame. As crazy as this looks, you would think this pawn is only 3 squares away from queening. The king's right behind it. The rook is here. This is a drawn endgame. The pawn comes forward, takes. And yes, you can lose that, but we're going to give a check. We're going to give another check. And it looks like we can repeat moves. My rook will get back just in time. It will then sacrifice itself, and your king will not get close enough. My king will be able to shield you off, and you will have to sacrifice your rook. And the game ends in your draw. I brushed over that endgame really quickly. So did the players. Ju Wenjun from move, her longest think was about 4 minutes. Yeah, was about 4 minutes on move 47 when she played d3. From here, she spent almost no time at all. Look at her time. Look at her time. She spends seconds. She played this like a machine. She was worse. Tan Zhongyi here makes a mistake. Rook a1 was the mistake. Just after playing bishop to c5, which was the best move. Here, bishop to c5 is like the only move keeping good enough advantage. Everything else kind of doesn't. So bishop to c5 is the best move. Knight e5. And here, the only way to play for advantage is to play the immediate f4. Because you would force the knight back to c6. And now you can play king c4. As my board kind of glitches out. And you attack the rook and your king gets in here a lot closer. This was one thing she might have missed. She starts with rook a1. And now the king can come out. Even though you f4 now the knight doesn't have to go back to c6. It can go back to d7. And it can force a trade after the king starts to infiltrate. One final mistake here, rook to e7. The best move here is to play bishop to d4. Not allowing the trade because we know that it already ends in a drawn rook endgame. And here probably the best move is to play some h5. Get moving with your pawns on the queen side, creating that counterplay. Because you've got a 3-on-2, which will simplify to a 1-on-0. And that pawn will have to be chased down, and you'll have to worry about that pawn while this pawn has to run as well. So a very tight endgame in the end. You can just see these players playing like absolute machines. They do not want to give each other an inch. We've had 2 draws, 2 decisive results, 2 games in a row where these players just fought. And there was a thought in the game where they might settle for a draw. You know, we had that potential repetition. There were a few times in the game where it looked like in a couple moves it'll peace out. And they just kept playing and playing and fighting and fighting. They said they owe it to the spectators. Aren't we lucky? these two players playing their heart out for the World Championship. This means something to them. Of course it does. Ju Wenjun wants to become a 5-time champion. Tan Zhongyi wants to become champion again after she lost to Ju Wenjun. These players care. They are fighting for every little inch that they can get in this match. I can't wait for Game 5.